So I actually just finished doing a instructional video on some breath work, which I'll be putting up on YouTube, but also on Instagram in future, and I'll keep those coming out so you guys can start to utilize that. But just before I put the camera away, I wanted to actually film a video to post up here on YouTube and just start to discuss why I got into breath work, why I got into yoga, and why I think it has a place in a lot of blokes' lives, but a lot of guys are too closed off to accepting this sort of thing. And I guess the contradiction that comes along with that, which I'll get into shortly. So firstly, I just wanted to talk about my first experience getting into yoga and getting into breath work. So this would have been pre-COVID, pre-2020. It's probably about the year prior. So I just finished doing a men's fitness competition, which I posted up on YouTube. I wound up breaking up with the girl I was with at the time, and at that point I just, I knew I wanted to work on myself. If I really take anything as a blessing, any time that I've gone through a breakup in somewhat recent years in my adult life, I've always taken it as a time to learn from it and improve myself. And that's how I found yoga, and that's how I found breath work. So basically what had happened after the breakup, I joined up at a Total Fusion, funnily enough, which is where I do personal training out of now. And I got into yoga. I'm very gung-ho when I get into things. So throughout this duration, I was probably going 6 to 7 days a week. Once I find routine, I keep it because I guess it gives me some sense of control and security and safety there. But one thing I did like about it was just the feeling that I had throughout these practices. And then one thing for me too was just the warmth of the teachers that I got there. And I think that's one thing that a lot of guys can use depending on the teachers that you have, particularly female teachers who definitely have that sense of motherly love, like you're not there to open up and talk about your feelings and everything going on. But particularly if you're a guy who does struggle to do that, you might not actually need that. You might actually just want to do a class and then maybe have a moment where you can chat to the teacher after, or just see that they genuinely give a shit about you, because you go through your days a lot of the time not really knowing if people do give a shit. And it can be hard for us as men to express our emotions at times. We tend to think more in the logic, and it's definitely a double-edged sword, and there's a lot of pros to it, and it's why we use that masculine energy to build up businesses, to train hard, to improve ourselves. But I think on the other side of things, it's good to, and you will notice this, you do enjoy the feminine parts of energy in the world. So you enjoy women, you may enjoy more feminine women, you may enjoy things like what are classed as the feminine, like nature, the ocean, even things like music, drinking, things of that nature are actually classed as like a feminine energy. So it's good to have that balance there in your life. Anyway, I've segued a bit here. So when I got into yoga, it was really a stage for me of, I would actually say healing. I wouldn't just say self-improvement, but it was like, all right, what do I need to work on? I'm a little bit wounded here. And then using it as something to help me move forward. And like I said, I get very consistent when I get into something and I see some sort of evidence that it's making a big impact in my life. So I did it for 18 months pre-COVID. COVID happened, I stopped at the gym, and then I continued my breath work and my yoga practice. I just did the same thing over and over again. And if that's anything I would recommend, it's that if you get into it, explore and try to do new things, do new classes, do different types of breath work, just so you can learn more and more, and obviously take everything with a grain of salt. One thing that I'll add to this is that if you're a guy who is on the fence about something like yoga, I can perfectly understand you walking into a room and then they start talking about what sounds to be very whack things at times, very woo-woo talk, and I don't think you need to dive into it at that point. You just need to accept, hey, doing these asanas, doing these poses is probably going to be helpful for me, especially if you're someone that lifts in the gym, you do a bit of running, or you play some sport. It's definitely going to have some sort of support towards that, whether it's increasing muscle length, or let's say flexibility, could be coordination and balance, it could be a sense of proprioception, so knowing where your body is in space. There are a lot of physical benefits, but then taking that mental benefit as well, giving it a crack, and just seeing how you actually feel through these classes and at the end of them, because you might be surprised with things that come up, but also some of the clarity that you have at times and some of the calm that you find actually integrating this into your life. And that's obviously why I've kept it in. Now, on the breathwork side of things, another thing that came with it was just the fact that you do a lot of focus on breath throughout a yoga practice, but you also start to integrate that throughout your day. So if you start a day, which I would highly recommend, with 5 to 10 minutes of breath work, you start to pay more and more attention to how your breath winds up, what sort of rhythm, what sort of depth, or how shallow it may be throughout the day when stress starts to creep in, when you've got deadlines at work, when you've got studies, something you've got to get over the line, when you've got relationship problems, or you're training and you realize that you can't even catch your breath between sets or intervals, whatever it may be. And you start to realize how important it is just to be able to control your breath, because it's one of the biggest things, if not the biggest thing, that you can have control of to positively impact your physical and mental health and regulate your nervous system. So it's not even just about supporting your current health and then your long-term longevity, but it's also about increasing recovery as well. How you deliver oxygen around your body is super important. As a matter of fact, we can live without food for X amount of days or weeks and water for X amount of days, but try seeing how long you can live without oxygen for. It's pretty bloody important. So yeah, a little bit about my experience with yoga was just that. It was just something that I found helped me out a lot. I can understand. I will admit I'm more open-minded. I haven't always been the blokiest bloke, and I've got friends like that, and I respect it about them, but I can also see how closed off they can be to something like this. If you told someone, hey, I've got something for you that could help you from a physical and mental perspective, probably help you handle your shit when it comes to your own mental health, dealing with trauma and things of that nature, and then you tell the guy it's yoga and they'd probably have a laugh and tell you to get fucked. And I can understand where they're coming from, because the way that some teachers bring it across and the way it's represented at times are by these hippies and people just saying a lot of out there stuff, and I don't necessarily agree with that being the way that you attract people to yoga. I don't think you necessarily have to dive that far into it. I think you can absorb a lot from the physical practice itself and a lot from the pranayama, the breath work. There are 6 other limbs to yoga, so 6 other separate things, which I won't discuss today, but just accepting that those 2 things can have a massive impact on your physical and mental health. And if you are someone who's interested in improving their performance for a certain sport or just your training in general, it's going to massively impact that too. But again, just to touch on that topic, which I had brought up earlier, if you are a guy who just feels like, oh, yoga's, just a bit of weird stretching, or yoga's for fucking hippies or pussies, or I don't want to be seen doing that. To be honest with you, man, if you've got an issue with people seeing you practice yoga, that's an insecurity within itself. So if you think it's tough not to do yoga, what's tough about giving a fuck about what people think? Especially in the sense when this is something that could help you. And if you are someone that actually struggles with their mental health, but like a lot of men in this day and age, and why we have such massive issues with mental health and suicide, is because guys can't process it. And this doesn't mean that you have to go there and just start rattling off and talking to everyone about your emotions, but just do something for yourself. Move your body in a way that you're not used to. Start to focus on your breathing and see that, and just start to notice how that helps you manage emotions and feelings that come up. If you're someone that's always angry, it'll help you manage that. If you're someone that's always sad, it might help you manage that too. And then sometimes it just helps you to sit back and make sense of things a little bit more, and you start to pick up things that you're doing, like the way that you think or the way you act. You're like, oh, I do that quite a bit, or where does that come from? And you start to get a little bit more introspective. And I think that those things enough in themselves are enough to really positively impact your life. And I don't think you have to dive a hell of a lot deeper than that unless you really want to. On to the next point, because I've had a bit of a mind blank at this moment, even just bringing yoga and breathwork into your life, like it doesn't have to be crazy amount of hours in a day. You could do like a 15 minute yoga flow in a day, 5 to 10 minutes of breath work. So in under half an hour a day, you could see massive impacts from that. And if you want to extend on from that, if you really love it, then you can pursue it even more. I just really think there's a lot of guys out there that yoga would benefit, but we just haven't been sold it in the right way. And it's heavily dominated. The funny thing is it's heavily dominated by females, but it was actually made by males. So if you're someone that's still watching and you're a male and you're on the fence about it, males made this damn thing, but it's not the majority of males that are doing it. And some of these males that were doing it were, badass warriors back in the day. Think of it came from India, but, I always picture like not the ninja, the samurai meditating in the garden or doing some sort of energetic flow and movement, and then they're swinging the sword in battle. It's like if you want to be that warrior, you've got to find some peace and some calm as well. And one final thing, which is what I blanked on before as to what I'll add to this, because I was having a discussion with a mate recently who is a fighter, and and actually I remember he posted something the other day and I had a good laugh of it, and it was about dealing with your shit through fighting, through punching on, but also people do it through, they don't have to punch on, they do it through lifting weights and running. It's exerting yourself, but you're kind of moving away from the thing. You're never actually dealing it. But what I will add is I see the merit in it, and this is why you bring yoga and breath work in to the things that you're currently doing. So if you are lifting, running, fighting, doing whatever sport, you don't replace them, you bring it in to help them and start to gain things from that you aren't currently from what you are currently doing, right? Doing a combat sport will make you a good fighter, and it will help you be in a better place probably mentally. But if you have shit that you need to work on and you don't address it, if you can start to regulate your breath and your nervous system and start to become a bit more introspective and not always feel like I can't sit still, I've got to go do something, that's where you can draw back over time. I will say too, I still do breath work now in the mornings, say it's a 10-minute practice, and for like 80% of that my mind is elsewhere, I'm thinking about other things, but for the time it does get me to focus on my breath, it pays off. And I notice, I guess I just haven't done it in so long, but the times that I've missed that out of my routine, I definitely notice it throughout the day within my mood and just stress and anxiety. So for anyone who struggles with anxiety, it's going to help you out a lot too. So I hope you guys enjoyed a bit of a rant today about this, my experience with yoga. I want to start bringing out that more in my content. My whole approach with coaching at this point and how I want to help men is understanding that we want to do the hard physical things, understanding that we want to be uncomfortable and overcome these challenges. And that's why I'm a massive proponent of hybrid training. In the past, like obviously trained in a combat sport, and I understand people doing that. And then I want to teach people how to integrate things that also complement that, as well as their mental health and then their performance in and outside the gym, like within your career as well. Imagine what you would do if you're more productive, if you're more calm and collected. How would that serve you in your job role, like in your career, how you manage people, how you run your business or your company, whatever it may be. So my approach to this is using all these tools at our disposal so we can build ourselves into the best men that we can be. And hopefully I start to get that message across over time. I believe I will. That everything is a tool in our arsenal. As men, we're good at using tools to create changes. And whether that be in your career, in your business, your company, whether that be for your family, it's always going to stem for the changes that you create within yourself. So I'm going to leave it at that today. Also, look at that dirty watch tan. Don't worry guys, we bought a Garmin, so I can actually classify myself. I identify as a runner now. Hope you enjoyed the video today, guys. Look forward to seeing you next time. Give me any feedback. Tell me if I dragged on too long here, if you liked a bit more of this chilled, laid back talk. I really find I'm enjoying doing these chats like this on Instagram as well. Catch you guys next time. Hope you have a bloody good week/weekend if that's when you're seeing this. Laters.